Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. So I wanted to share a small-ish book haul with you today. I still have 8 books here, but as I've said before, I have cut back quite significantly on my book buying, trying to get through what I have before I accumulate a whole bunch more. But these ones I just couldn't pass up. Most of them are YA, and like I've said on the channel recently, I've been having a lot of trouble with YA, but for some reason I just can't let it go. So these ones I hope are going to fill the void that I'm looking for YA goodness, and hopefully they're not just full of romance and whiny characters and everything else that I hate about YA. So jumping right in here, this one is not specifically YA. It's called Big Dark Hole by Jeffrey Ford, and I've never read anything by this author before, and honestly I haven't heard anybody else talking about this book. So this is a new release. I think I just got it in the mail probably 2 weeks ago, and I had pre-ordered it way back in December and totally forgot about it. And it is a collection of short stories, and from the sounds of it, they do kind of creep into that weird fiction sort of genre. But the biggest reason why I ordered this book was because of the absolutely beautiful cover. So pretty much if you put a skull and flowers on anything, I'm going to buy it. And it was noted on one of those lists that I was researching that was like a 2021 anticipated list. So hoping this is going to be good. If you've read anything by this author, let me know down in the comments below. So next up is one that I'm very, very late to the game with. So this is Clown in a Cornfield by Adam Caesar, and I think everyone in the horror community has read this book except for me, but I did want to pick it up specifically to read during spooky season because this is a teenage slasher, and just to me, you know, teenage slasher stories are just quintessential October reads or watches. You know, I watch Scream every year and Prom Night and those kinds of teenage slasher stories. So this book is a little bit polarizing because I've heard really, really great reviews from it, and you know, the kills are really gruesome and it's a little bit more towards adult than people expected. And then on the other end, I've heard that people, you know, weren't really satisfied with it and it was a little bit problematic. So I wanted to pick it up and read it for myself because recently this one did win a Bram Stoker Award. So yeah, wanted to pick it up and just see which end that I come out on. And it is praised on the back here by Paul Tremblay and Stephen Graham Jones and Madeleine Roux. So excited to get into this one in October, and of course I will do a full review of this one on the channel because like I said, it's been so polarizing and I want to let you guys know which end of the fence that I come out on with this one. So I picked up this one too. Haven't heard of it before, but it's Killing Mr. Griffin by Lois Duncan. So Lois Duncan, of course, is from I Know What You Did Last Summer fame. And again, we have another teenage sort of slasher story, I would expect. So these kids at the local high school, they have a teacher that they really, really despise. He's really old school, he's really hardcore, there's no fun in his classes, and they just really, really despise him. So they want to play a prank and kidnap him. They don't actually want to kill him, but they want to kind of teach him a lesson to sort of scare the wits out of him, I guess, and try to get him to lighten up in the class. So I guess their plan goes awry. Maybe they do end up actually killing him. And it says on the front here, revenge is a dangerous lesson. So like I said, it's by Lois Duncan, I Know What You Did Last Summer. So this seems to have very much the same sort of themes running through it as that one. I haven't read the book of I Know What You Did Last Summer. I did have it on my TBR a couple of months ago, but I didn't get to it. But of course, everyone has seen the movie, so really interested to get into this one and see, you know, the parallels between the two stories. And of course, teenage slashers is one of my favorite genres, so really excited to read this one, and I'll let you guys know how it goes. So next up is The Wicked Deep by Shay Earnshaw, and this is another one that I bought, you know, specifically because of the cover, but this also is a witchy read, and I love any kind of story that has to do with legends and folklore in a specific town that has to do with witches from the past. So in this one specifically, we have 3 sisters who 2 centuries before were accused of witchcraft, and the townspeople tied rocks to their ankles and threw them into the waters that are surrounding the town. So every summer since, the 3 sisters come back and they steal the bodies of troubled teenage girls so that they can lure the local boys into the waters and drown them, from what it sounds like. So back in present day, There is a young girl who lives in this town, and she befriends a boy who is a newcomer and has no idea of this legend. And of course, with any small town, you have all kinds of gossip and lies and secrets, and people are turning against each other, and Penny and Bo are trying to save themselves and others from the fate of the sisters coming back and stealing the bodies of 3 other young girls. So I've heard a little bit about this book. It seems to be a pretty popular read with, you know, the YA crowd, but it sounded really intriguing to me. Like I said, I love anything that has to do with the legends of like witches from the past. So if you've read this one, let me know how it goes, and let me know if there's like heavy romance elements or anything in this one. I don't know if there is going to be. Of course, when we're dealing with 2 main characters that are male and female, it's kind of inevitable in YA that it's going to go that route. So hopefully it doesn't, and hopefully it sticks more to the legends of the witches. So again, let me know if you've heard this one and if you think I'm gonna like it. So next up we have Witches of Ash and Ruin by E. Latimer. So this one sounds super intriguing to me because it has kind of folklore and mythology kind of wrapped into this. So we follow 17-year-old Dana, and she has mental illness, so she suffers from OCD, and she's also been outed as being bisexual in her conservative Irish town. So she's struggling with all of that, but she is actually becoming a full-fledged witch as well. And then another coven gets introduced into this small town, and it's rumored that they have backgrounds in dark magic, and they come with premonitions of death. So then a local witch turns up dead, and they bear the symbol of the Butcher of Manchester, who is a serial killer. So of course we have, you know, the Good Witch Coven, the Bad Witch Coven. We have 2 main characters who are trying to figure out what's going on with these murders. But what really pulled me into wanting to read this book was what it said in the synopsis about it having razor-sharp prose and achingly real characters. E. Latimer crafts a sweeping, mesmerizing story of dark magic and brutal mythology set against the backdrop of contemporary Ireland that is impossible to put down. So again, it's a witchy story, and we have mythology and everything wound in here, and it's kind of got this true crime element as well. So it's ticking all the boxes for me, so really have high hopes for this one. So next up we have A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson, and I've heard so much about this book, and this is another one that's really polarizing. So I've heard some people say that it's really good, and then some other people say that it has a great premise but didn't really come to fruition for them. So this one is more along the lines of a crime story rather than a horror book, which is totally cool with me, and this is another one that I kind of wanted to read to see which side of the fence that I come out on myself. So here we have a story of a young girl who had been murdered 5 years earlier, and I believe she was murdered by her boyfriend, and the police know that he did it, everybody knows that he did it, and you know, he's kind of the only suspect. But then 5 years later, this young girl in high school takes on the case as her kind of senior thesis, her senior project, and she has her doubts about the whole story. So she's kind of following the leads and the discrepancies, and she's uncovering secrets and new information that she thinks is pertinent to the case. So this sounds really good. I'm hoping it's going to be one of those fast-paced sort of crime stories. I love those, you know, the ones that you just really have trouble putting down. And this, as soon as I read the synopsis, it reminds me very much of the Adnan Syed case, which of course was the first season of Serial, and you know, where somebody takes on the case and they start uncovering things and, you know, kind of puts doubts in people's minds about what's going on. So again, excited to read this one because I want to see what end of the fence I come out on. This is a really popular YA, so again, if you've read it, let me know down below what you thought. So next up we have Theme Music by T. Marie Vandelli, and I heard about this book recently on someone's channel who read it, and it sounded really good. So this is another story that revolves around crime but still has horrific elements within it. So there was a real tragedy that happened, basically, that a family was butchered by the father, and then he decided to kill himself. But he spared one of the children, 1-year-old Dixie. So she grows up with, you know, under the shadow of this tragedy that happened in her family, and that her own father had killed the rest of them. So she really doesn't know what happened all of those years previous. Of course, she's been told by police and etc. what actually happened. but when the house goes up for sale 25 years later, she decides to buy it so she can go in and see if she can unravel the mystery behind what exactly happened to her family and what drove her father to do this. So very familiar storyline, but I love those kinds of sort of mysteries where someone is trying to unravel what had happened years before. And it says right at the bottom here, Dixie must find a way to expose the lunacy behind her family's massacre in order to save her few loved ones who are still alive and whatever scrap of sanity is left. So unfortunately, when I bought this book, they sent it in one of those cardboard envelopes that's sort of, it's kind of shrunk to the book, and I've done this once before, sliced right through the cover of the book, so that's really unfortunate and it's bugging the hell out of me. But it happened. I'll try to be more careful when I get books in the mail because I think we've all done it at some point. So again, I love those sort of stories that have that crime mystery sort of running through it. And it seems to have the same sort of themes as Home Before Dark by Riley Sager, which I read at the end of last year. So really high hopes for this one. And of course, it wouldn't be one of my book hauls without some R.L. Stein. So we have a Fear Street super thriller. So this one is Party Games and Don't Stay Up Late. So this is one of the bind-ups of the original books, and I really like buying these because then I don't have to worry about damaging my vintage copies and still reading the full story. So in the first one, Party Games, Rachel is invited to a party on Fear Island, and we know all kinds of crazy crap happens on Fear Island, and the kids decide that they're going to have a scavenger hunt, which starts turning up some horrific surprises. So it says that Rachel has to play the game of murder in order to survive. So, you know, a bunch of kids stuck on an island and people are getting killed. I'm all for that one. And of course, it sounds like classic Fear Street. You know, Fear Street, I think, is the one thing that when I start to get really upset and kind of pissed off with the YA that I'm reading, I always go back to a Fear Street because I know it's going to really give me all of the feels that I'm looking for. So in the second story, we follow Lisa, and poor Lisa was in an accident, and now she's being plagued by all kinds of nightmares and nighttime hallucinations, which if anybody else out there has really bad night terrors and nocturnal hallucinations, it's horrific. It's absolutely horrible. So back to the story. She's having all of these nightmares and hallucinations and trying to get over the trauma that happened in this accident. So she takes on a babysitting gig to try to get her mind off of everything. But in real life, her friends are starting to turn up dead. And I guess the way that they're murdered is very reminiscent to what was happening in her nightmares. So it seems like Lisa's nightmares are actually starting to come true. So again, you know, classic Fear Street. I'm never disappointed with these stories. Some of them, of course, are better than others. But again, excited to have another Fear Street bind up for the shelves. So there you guys have it. That's all the books that I picked up over the past couple of weeks. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know if you've read any of these or if you're looking to pick them up for yourself. Please make sure also to give me a thumbs up. It really helps me out on the channel, and leave me a comment down below because you know I love chatting with you guys. But until next time, stay spooky everybody. Bye.